how do you find the gradients between 2 points? I am Astrid Nalvita, the Maths Mentor, here to help you pass your next maths exam. You're watching a video that is part of the Calculus playlist, so make sure you're subscribed, that way you won't miss out on future videos. As promised from the last video, we will now go into detail on how to calculate gradients. Gradient is a measurement of slope, but how does someone go out there in the real world and measure how steep, say, a hill or a road is? They do this by comparing how much people go up or rise by how much people go forward or run. For example, with this line, if you were standing on the left point and you walk to the right, how much would you have gone up from there to there? You would have gone up 4 units. So whether it be 4 meters or 4 kilometers, it doesn't matter. You would have gone up 4 units. And how much would you have gone forward? You would have gone forward 8 units. We can say that the gradient is how much you rise compared to how much you run, or rise over run. The rise is 4 in this case, and the run is 8, so we have 4 over 8, which is a half. Now let's have a look to see what happens if I make this hill a lot steeper. Now we have a hill this steep. This is a very, very steep hill, so if you walk from left to right, how much would you have gone up? You would have gone up or risen 9 units, and how much have you gone forward from this point to that point? You would have only gone forward 2 units. So the gradient would be 9 over 2, which is 4.5 or 4.5. And that's a very, very steep line. Compared to, let's say, this. Now this is not a very steep line at all, it's almost flat, but there's still a little bit of an incline. So as you walk from this point to that point, you have risen 1 unit, while going forward or run 10 units. So your gradient is 1 over 10, which is 0.1. A flat line, as you know from my last video, always has a gradient of 0, but now we get to find out why. So if you walk from left to right, your rise is 0 because you haven't gone up at all. And it doesn't matter what your run is, because 0 divided by anything will still be 0. That's why every flat horizontal line has a gradient of 0. Like this video if you finally understand why the steepness of a line is measured by how much you rise versus how much you run. Let's do an example. Imagine yourself on the point on the left, walking to the point on the right. How far did you rise? Well, you went from 1 and you rose to 4. So that is a rise of 3 units. 1, 2, 3. Now how far did you go forward, or what is your run? You went from -2 and you go all the way forward to 4. So your run is 6 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Another way you can find the gradient is to use gradient is rise over run. And to find the rise, you take the y value of the point that's on the right, so 4, minus the y value of the point on the left, which is 1, which is what we did earlier. So we go 4 minus 1, and we'll get the 3, the rise of 3. To get the run, it's exactly the same but with the x values. So you take the x value of the point on the right, which in this case is 4, then you minus the x value of the point on the left, which is -2. So 4 minus -2 would be 6. Now you have 3 over 6, which can be simplified to 1 over 2, or a half. At this point, you want to ask yourself, does it make sense for it to have a gradient of positive a half? From my last video, you know that if from left to right you're walking uphill, the gradient is positive. And that's what we have, a positive gradient, so that's good. This line also doesn't look to be too steep either, so a positive a half do make sense. Let's look at another line. Picture yourself on the left point, walking to the point on the right. How much did you rise? Well, in this case, you're going down from 7 to 2, so your rise would be negative. And in this case, you have a rise of -5, going from 7 to 2. Does that make sense? Because you're going down, you're going to have a negative rise. Now, how much did you run? How much did you go forward? You went from -2 and you went to 3. So you went forward 5 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is a run of 5. Another way you can do this is to use gradient is rise over run. Again, the rise would be the y value that's on the right point minus the y value that's on the left point, and the run would be the x value of the right point, which is 3, minus the x value that's on the left point, which is -2, and that will give you your rise of -5 over the run of 5, and that is a gradient of -1. Again, use common sense to gauge whether the answer is right. You can see that from left to right, it's downhill, so you would expect a negative gradient, which we have. And the steepness is not too steep, but it's not too flat either, so a -1 do seem fitting. I have included a free checklist in the description below to help you prepare for your next maths exam. You might also be wondering, how do you find the gradients of a line if no points were given? That will be covered in the next video. See you there!